Sarah Martinez had always prided herself on being the kind of wife who trusted completely. After 12 years of marriage to David, she believed their relationship was built on a foundation of unwavering honesty and mutual respect. Sure, they'd had their rough patches, who hadn't? But they'd always worked through them together. Or so she thought. It was a Thursday evening in late October when her world began to unravel. David had called earlier that afternoon, his voice carrying that familiar apologetic tone she'd grown accustomed to over the past few months. "Hey, babe, I'm really sorry, but I've got to work late again tonight. This Henderson project is killing me. Don't wait up, okay?" Sarah had simply smiled into the phone, even though he couldn't see her. "Of course, honey. I'll leave some dinner in the fridge for you. Love you." "Love you too," he'd replied, though something in his voice seemed distant, almost mechanical. After hanging up, Sarah settled into her usual Thursday night routine. She made herself a simple dinner, caught up on some reading, and decided to treat herself to a girls' night out with her sister Emma, who had been pestering her for weeks to try the new wine bar downtown called Meridian. "Finally!" Emma had squealed when Sarah called. "I was beginning to think you'd forgotten how to have fun. Pick you up in an hour." Meridian was everything Emma had promised. Dimly lit with warm amber lighting, exposed brick walls lined with an impressive wine selection, and small, intimate tables perfect for catching up. Sarah felt herself relaxing for the first time in weeks as she and Emma settled into a corner booth, laughing over shared memories and catching up on Emma's latest dating disasters. "I'm telling you, Sarah, this guy actually brought his mother on our first date," Emma was saying, gesturing wildly with her wine glass. "His mother! Can you believe—" But Emma's words faded into background noise as Sarah's eyes locked onto a familiar figure across the restaurant. There, at a small table near the window, sat her husband, David. He was leaning forward, his hand covering the delicate fingers of a stunning brunette Sarah had never seen before. The woman was laughing at something David had said, her head tilted, back in the kind of carefree way that spoke of early romance and shared secrets. Sarah's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. She watched, transfixed, as David reached across the table to tuck a strand of the woman's hair behind her ear, a gesture so tender and intimate that it made Sarah's chest tighten with a pain she'd never experienced before. "Sarah? Sarah, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." Emma's voice seemed to come from very far away. "That's because I have," Sarah whispered, nodding toward David's table. "That's my husband." Emma's eyes widened as she followed Sarah's gaze. "Oh, my God. Oh, Sarah, I'm so sorry. What do you want to do? Do you want to leave? Do you want to confront him?" Sarah continued to stare, watching as David and his companion shared what looked like an inside joke, their laughter creating a bubble of intimacy that excluded the rest of the world. She noticed how David's eyes sparkled in a way she hadn't seen directed at her in months, maybe years. How long had this been going on? How many late nights at the office had actually been spent here, or places like this? "Sarah," Emma pressed gently. "I don't know," Sarah admitted, her voice barely audible. "I feel like I can't breathe." As if, sensing her gaze, David suddenly looked up and scanned the restaurant. Sarah quickly turned away, her heart hammering against her ribs, praying he hadn't seen her. When she dared to look again a few moments later, he was back to focusing entirely on his date, his hand now resting possessively over hers on the table. "We should go," Emma said softly. "This is torture." But Sarah shook her head slowly. Something was crystallizing in her mind, a cold clarity cutting through the shock and pain. "No. I need to think. I need to understand how long this has been happening and what I'm going to do about it." They sat in tense silence for another 20 minutes, Sarah occasionally stealing glances at her husband's table while her mind raced through the past few months. The late nights, the sudden interest in new clothes, the way he'd become protective of his phone, the decreased intimacy between them that she'd attributed to work stress, and the natural ebb and flow of a long marriage. When David and the woman finally left together, walking out into the night with his arm around her waist, Sarah felt something inside her shift permanently. The naive, trusting wife she'd been an hour ago was gone forever, replaced by someone harder, more calculating. "I'm going to destroy him," she said quietly, surprising herself with the steel in her own voice. Emma reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "Whatever you need, I'm here for you. But Sarah, maybe you should think about this when you're not in shock." "No," Sarah interrupted, her eyes still fixed on the window where her husband had disappeared into the night with another woman. "I've been thinking for 12 years. Now it's time to act." The following morning, Sarah woke up with a clarity of purpose that surprised her. David had come home around midnight, slipping into bed quietly and reeking of expensive perfume that definitely wasn't hers, when he kissed her forehead and whispered, "Sorry I'm so late, the meeting ran forever." She had to bite her tongue to keep from screaming. Instead, she simply mumbled something about understanding and rolled over, listening to his breathing even out as he fell into what seemed like the peaceful sleep of someone with a clear conscience. Sarah, however, didn't sleep at all. She spent the dark hours staring at the ceiling, her mind working through possibilities and consequences. By the time dawn broke, she knew exactly what she needed to do. The first step was gathering evidence. Sarah had never been the type to snoop through her husband's belongings, but extraordinary circumstances called for extraordinary measures. While David showered the next morning, humming cheerfully as if he hadn't been betraying their marriage the night before, Sarah quietly went through his phone. What she found made her stomach turn. Messages dating back 3 months with someone named Andrea that left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. Photos, plans for secret meetups, discussions about hotels. Even worse, there were group texts with David's closest friends, Marcus, Tony, and James. Men Sarah had welcomed into their home countless times. Men she'd cooked for and laughed with and considered family. "Bros, she has no clue," David had written just 2 weeks ago. "Sarah's so trusting it's almost too easy. She actually thanked me for working so hard when I came home from the Ritz last week. Dude, you're living dangerously," Marcus had replied. "But Andrea's smoking hot. Can't say I blame you." "Just don't get caught," Tony had added. "Sarah seems like she'd take you to the cleaners." "She'll never find out," David had responded confidently. "She doesn't have a suspicious bone in her body. Besides, what she doesn't know won't hurt her." Sarah screenshot every conversation, every photo, every damning piece of evidence, forwarding it all to a secure email account she created that morning. Her hands shook with rage as she worked, but her mind remained crystal clear. The second step was understanding her legal position. Sarah had a successful career as a marketing director for a mid-sized tech company, but David was the primary breadwinner. He was a partner at a prestigious law firm, pulling in nearly 3 times her salary. If she filed for divorce, even with evidence of adultery, she'd be looking at a complicated battle over assets, alimony, and their beautiful suburban home. But Sarah wasn't interested in a drawn-out legal battle. She wanted something much more satisfying than money could provide. She wanted justice, and she wanted it to be public. The third step was the most crucial: timing and execution. David's firm was hosting their annual partners' dinner the following Saturday, a black tie affair where spouses were not only welcome, but expected to attend. It was the kind of event where David loved to show her off, introducing her as his beautiful, devoted wife to clients and colleagues. The irony wasn't lost on her, but even better than the partners' dinner was what she discovered while going through David's laptop later that afternoon. His friends' group text revealed they had plans to meet at Marcus's house that Friday night for their monthly poker game. The same Marcus who had encouraged David's affair. The same Tony and James who had joked about Sarah being too trusting. Perfect, she murmured to herself as an idea began to form. That evening, Sarah put on her best performance yet. When David came home at a reasonable hour, probably to avoid suspicion, she greeted him with a warm smile and his favorite dinner. "This is nice," he said, settling into his chair and looking genuinely pleased. "I feel like we haven't had a quiet evening together in ages." "I know," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the fury burning in her chest. "I've missed this, missed us." David reached across the table and took her hand. "I love you, Sarah. You know that, right? No matter how crazy work gets, you're always my priority." The ease with which the lies rolled off his tongue was staggering. Sarah squeezed his hand and smiled. "I love you too. Actually, I was thinking, why don't you go to poker night tomorrow? I know you've been stressed, and you deserve some time with the boys." David's eyes lit up with surprise and what might have been relief. "Really? You wouldn't mind?" "Of course not. I think I'll have a girls' night with Emma. Maybe finally organize those photos we've been meaning to put in albums." "That sounds perfect," David said, leaning over to kiss her cheek. "You're amazing, you know that?" "I try," Sarah replied, her smile never wavering even as she mentally added another log to the fire of her fury. That night, after David had fallen asleep beside her, Sarah finalized her plan. She created a fake social media account and spent hours researching David's poker buddies, learning about their wives, their jobs, their social circles. She practiced what she would say, how she would time everything for maximum impact. She also did something else, something that made her feel both sick and oddly liberated. She called the law firm where David worked and asked to speak with the managing partner about a sensitive matter regarding one of their attorneys. The secretary scheduled her for a Monday morning appointment. Finally, she reached out to Andrea through Instagram, crafting a message that was both mysterious and compelling. "Hi, Andrea. I think we should meet. We have more in common than you might think. I have some information about David that might interest you. Coffee tomorrow afternoon?" The response came within an hour. "I don't know who you are, but I'm intrigued. Starbucks on 5th Street at 2 p.m.? "Perfect," Sarah typed back, then deleted the account. Everything was falling into place. By Sunday night, David's comfortable little world of deception would be in ruins, and everyone who had been complicit in betraying her would face the consequences. She just had to make it through poker night first. Friday afternoon arrived with unseasonable warmth for late October, and Sarah used the beautiful weather as an excuse to have all the windows open in the house, creating perfect acoustics for what she had planned. David left for poker night at Marcus's house around 7, kissing her goodbye with what seemed like genuine affection. "Have fun with Emma," he said. "Don't wait up for me. You know how these games can run late." "Oh, I know exactly how late your nights can run," Sarah murmured to herself after the door closed behind him. At 7:30, Sarah received the text she'd been waiting for. "All the guys are here. Game's starting. Thanks again for being so cool about this. Love you." She waited another 30 minutes to be sure they'd be settled in, then put the first phase of her plan into motion. She drove to Marcus's house, parking 2 blocks away where she couldn't be seen, but close enough for the powerful wireless signal booster she'd purchased that week to work effectively. Sarah had spent considerable time researching Marcus's home. Network setup, information that was surprisingly easy to find through his wife's enthusiastic social media posts about their smart home. Getting access to his wireless cameras had taken some technical maneuvering, but Sarah's background in marketing had given her enough tech skills to manage it. From her car, she could see everything happening in Marcus's game room through the security camera feed on her tablet. David sat facing the camera, laughing and joking with his friends as they played cards and drank beer. They looked so innocent, so normal. Just 4 middle-aged men enjoying a Friday night away from their responsibilities. If only their wives could see what came next. At 9:15, right on schedule, David's phone rang. Sarah watched him glance at it and frown before answering. "Hey, Andrea, what's up? I told you I couldn't see you tonight." "What?" "Slow down, you're not making sense." Sarah smiled grimly. Her afternoon coffee meeting with Andrea had gone better than expected. Once the beautiful brunette realized she was talking to David's wife, her shock had quickly turned to fury at being lied to. David had told Andrea that he was separated and in the middle of a messy divorce, that Sarah was vindictive and trying to take everything from him. The truth had hit Andrea like a physical blow. "You're telling me he's been lying to me for 3 months?" Andrea had whispered, her face pale. "He said you guys were practically strangers living in the same house until the divorce finalized." "We have dinner together every night," Sarah had replied calmly. "We made love last Sunday morning. He tells me he loves me every single day." Andrea's hands had shaken as she absorbed this information. That's when Sarah had made her proposition. Now, watching through the camera feed, Sarah could see David's face changing as Andrea delivered her lines perfectly. "She knows everything. David, she knows about us, she knows about the hotels, she has screenshots of your messages, she's been following you." The poker table fell silent as David stood abruptly, walking away from his friends to have what he thought was a private conversation. "What are you talking about? That's impossible. Sarah doesn't even know how to—" David's voice trailed off as the implications hit him. Sarah activated the second phase of her plan, using Marcus's home automation system to turn on the room's speakers and begin broadcasting the phone conversation to everyone in the game room. "She showed me everything, David." Andrea's voice filled the room through the surround sound system. "Photos of us together, our text messages, even that video you took of me at the hotel last week. She knows about all of it." Sarah watched with satisfaction as Marcus, Tony, and James exchanged horrified glances, finally understanding what they were hearing. "Turn it off!" David shouted, frantically pressing buttons on his phone, not realizing the audio wasn't coming from his device. "She knows about your friends, too," Andrea continued, her voice now carrying the cold fury of a woman scorned. "She saw the group chat where you all laughed about how stupid and trusting she is, where Marcus said I was smoking hot and Tony told you not to get caught." The 3 men around the poker table looked like they wanted to disappear into the floor. Marcus had gone completely white, probably thinking about how he was going to explain this to his wife of 25 years. But Sarah wasn't finished. The third phase of her plan activated as she began live streaming the camera feed to Facebook, tagging every wife, every mutual friend, every colleague whose contact information she'd carefully compiled over the past week. "She's not just angry, David," Andrea was saying, her voice carrying clearly through the speakers. "She's destroyed. She told me you've been the love of her life for 12 years, that she trusted you completely. She showed me the anniversary card you gave her last month where you wrote about being soulmates and partners for life. How could you do that to someone?" David was now frantically trying to locate the source of the audio while his friends sat frozen in horror. The Facebook live stream was already generating comments and shares as their social circle began to tune in to the disaster unfolding in real time. "Please," David said into his phone, his voice cracking. "Andrea, we can work this out. Just tell me where Sarah is. I need to fix this." "You can't fix this," Andrea replied, and Sarah felt a surge of gratitude toward the woman who had been unknowingly helping to destroy her marriage. "She's not coming home tonight, David. She's not coming home at all. She said to tell you that the locks are already changed and your things are being packed as we speak." This was true. Sarah had arranged for a locksmith and Emma's boyfriend to handle that part of the operation while she orchestrated the evening's entertainment. The Facebook live stream now had over 200 viewers and climbing. Comments were pouring in from friends, neighbors, and colleagues expressing shock, disappointment, and support for Sarah. David's professional reputation was crumbling in real time as people shared the stream and tagged others. The prenup you made her sign? Andrea continued, delivering Sarah's final blow. Turns out it's invalid when there's adultery involved. Her lawyer says she's entitled to half of everything, including your partnership stake in the law firm. Oh, and David? She's already filed the papers. You'll be served on Monday morning. David dropped his phone, the device clattering across Marcus's hardwood floor. Through the camera feed, Sarah could see him standing in the middle of the room, like a broken man, finally understanding the magnitude of what he'd lost. Marcus found his voice first. Jesus, David, how could you be so stupid? My wife is going to kill me when she finds out I knew about this. We're all screwed, Tony muttered, pulling out his own phone and undoubtedly seeing the Facebook notifications flooding his screen. Sarah ended the live stream after 45 minutes, by which point over 800 people had watched David's world implode in high definition. The comment section was a mixture of support for Sarah and condemnation for David and his enablers. Driving home to the house where the locks had indeed been changed, Sarah felt something she hadn't experienced in months: peace. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages of support from friends who had seen the stream, offers of help, and expressions of admiration for her brilliant, devastating revenge. The final text of the night came from David himself. Sarah, please. We need to talk. I can explain everything. I love you. This isn't what you think. Sarah read the message, then blocked his number. She was done listening to his lies. 12 years of marriage had ended in a single evening, but as Sarah settled into the guest room at Emma's house, her new temporary home, she realized she wasn't grieving the end of her marriage. She was celebrating the end of living a lie. David had taught her that love without trust was meaningless, that loyalty had to be mutual to have any value. He'd also taught her that sometimes the best revenge was simply letting the truth speak for itself, with a worldwide audience to bear witness. The loyal wife was gone forever, but the woman who had taken her place was stronger, smarter, and absolutely nobody's fool.